Hello friends, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Neha Dangi, Assistant Professor in Commerce, Chhajuram Memorial Jat College, Hisar. The topic for today's discussion is approaches to organizational behavior. In this, we will study about three approaches, that is classical approach, neoclassical approach and modern approach. Classical approaches are divided into three categories: scientific management, administrative management and bureaucratic management. Neoclassical approaches are of two types: human relation approach and human behavior or human resource approach. Modern approaches are further divided into two categories: system approach and contingency or situational approach. By the end of this module, you will learn some basic objectives which have been set for this module. The first one is to study the basis of approaches to organizational behavior. The second one is to study the classical approaches to organizational behavior. The third objective is to know about the neoclassical approaches to organizational behavior. The fourth objective set for this module is to learn about the modern approaches to organizational behavior. Now we will done some introductory part which has been set as the basis for organizational behavior. Organizational behavior has been built on the basis of information and practices created with the help of numerous systematic researches over a period of time. Erstwhile, different management specialists have also stressed to find out the answers to various problems which have a relation to the difficulties of human behavior in organizations. Nevertheless, these studies have been limited to the area of organizational planning, designing organizational structure and regulating human behavior in organizations. The main focus of almost all the researchers at that time was on the designing of organizational structure and a very important aspect, which is analyzing human behavior in organizations which remained unexploited. Thus, classical approaches at that time were mainly scientific management, administrative management and bureaucratic management. The spinning point which came in the thinking of management specialists came with the Hawthorne experiments, which was conducted by Elton Mayo and his colleagues from Harvard Business School. They are of the viewpoint that obedience to management principles is not sufficient to make the management of an organization successful, but the employees of an organization, they should also be given due attention and concern. After that, various other researches were also performed in the same area. Next comes the approaches to organizational behavior. The approaches of organizational behavior can be divided into three categories. First is classical approaches, which include scientific management, administrative management and bureaucratic management. Second one is neoclassical approach, which include human relation approach and human behavior or human resource approach. The third one is modern approaches, which include system approach, contingency or situational approach. Now we will start with the first approach, that is classical approach. The classical approach to organizational behavior came into force around the year 1900. The term classical may be defined as something which has a traditional acceptance or long formation. The principles formed under this approach are also applicable in the present context. This approach was based on the assumption that more consideration should be given to production rather than manpower in an organization. An employee can be motivated through monetary incentives as per the conviction of classical approach. The classical approach to organizational behavior has the following interpretations. Number one is interconnected and systematic management functions, which says that the functions of management such as planning, organizing, staffing, directing and controlling are interconnected, and their systematic coordination is the core of management. A specific function of management is comprised of in other functions, that is planning and organizing, staffing, directing and controlling. Thus, the working of a manager in an organization can be described by the functions of management. Second interpretation is supervisory principles. Classical approach to organizational behavior laid the foundation of many management principles which deliver rules for the management of human behavior. The nature of these principles is rigid and they are applicable everywhere. The third interpretation is inflexible organizational structure. Classical approach has provided an inflexible and rigid organizational structure for monitoring human behavior. The structure is based on a hierarchy in which employees working at lower level position are controlled and regulated by the immediate higher level boss. The fourth interpretation is monetary incentives for motivation. Classical approach is of the view that monetary incentives they should be provided to employees, which will be a source of greater motivation for performance. The second approach is neoclassical approach. According to this approach, human resources they should be given more importance than physical resources of the organization. It came around the year 1930. It is further divided into two approaches. First one is human relation approach. Human relation approach was given by a famous psychologist, Elton Mayo. According to this approach, the employees of an organization they should be treated like human beings and not as money-making machines. Elton Mayo conducted experiments in order to finalize this approach, which are called Hawthorne experiments. These experiments showed that production has a direct relation with emotional factors rather than working conditions. The final conclusion of Mayo was that while doing work, informal relationship among the employees they play a significant role. Employees have their own needs and desires, thus they should not be simply treated as means of production but as human beings. The second neoclassical approach is human behavior or human resource approach. Under this approach, the emphasis is given on the study of human behavior rather than human relations. This approach came into style after 1940. This approach is also known as leadership, behavioral science or human resource approach. The supporters of this approach include scholars like Douglas MacGregor, Rensis Likert, Chester I. Bernard, Frederick Herzberg, Mary Parker Follett, Warren G. Bennis, Abraham Maslow, etc. The third type of approaches are modern approaches. This approach came into trend around the year 1950. It is an enhanced form of classical and neoclassical approach. This approach has been made with the help of two fundamental approaches, which are system approach and contingency approach. The classical approach is further divided into three categories. Number one is scientific management. The credit of introducing the concept of scientific management goes to F.W. Taylor. He is regarded as the father of scientific management. This concept was introduced by him in USA in the beginning of 20th century. Besides Taylor, Frank and Lillian Gilbreth, Henry L. Gantt and Harrington Emerson have also contributed significantly to the growth and development of the concept of scientific management. The term scientific management, when defined in literary terms, means doing the work of management in a scientific manner. Thus, scientific management may be defined as removal of the traditional approaches to management and implementing innovative and more scientific approaches. Taylor was of the view that before starting a work, a manager should make a thorough analysis of it and should take his decision accordingly. Next comes the principles of scientific management. Taylor has given some basic principles of scientific management, which are: number 1 is substituting rule of thumb with the application of science. According to this principle, in order to develop a technique of completing maximum possible work efficiently and at minimal cost, there should be a detailed analysis of activities which are being performed in an organization. It also states that instead of getting stuck up with the traditional techniques of doing work, new and innovative techniques they should be devised in order to make the work simpler and easier. In short, it can be said that the rule of thumb should be substituted with the application of science or organized knowledge. Second principle is harmony between labor and management. This principle considers both labor and management as complementary to each other. Labor, the most important factor of production, cannot work without the survival of management, and management, on the other hand, has no existence without the services of labor. Thus, according to this principle, there should be harmonious relations between labor and management in an organization, and both should aim to achieve the same objective, that is, the maximum and good quality output at minimum cost. The third principle is systematic selection and training of workers. As per this principle, a systematic and organized method should be adopted for the selection and training of workers. A wrong appointment can destroy the whole environment of the organization. There should be an appointment of only those persons who possess the required skills and capabilities necessary to perform a particular job. But the work doesn't end here only. With the proper selection, there comes the proper training. The workers should be provided with proper and adequate training from time to time in order to enhance their efficiency, which will ultimately be beneficial for both the workers as well as the organization. The fourth principle is maximum production. According to this principle, full effort should be made by both labor and management in order to achieve maximum production or output. Factors of production which are available with the organization should be utilized to the fullest possible extent. If there is proper utilization of factors of production, there would be a chance of having maximum profits, which will ultimately increase the wages of the workers, and they will be more committed to the organization. The fifth principle is equality and fairness in division of responsibility. This principle states that there should be equality and fairness in dividing responsibilities between the two main groups in the organization. These groups are management and labor. The responsibility of assigning the time required to do a particular work lies with the management, and that of actual completion of work rests with the labor. If the time required to complete a particular work is not determined properly, then manager will be held responsible, and on the other hand, if the work has not been done in a proper manner, the laborer would be responsible. Thus, the responsibility is equally divided between both labor and management. Next is the techniques of scientific management. The principles of scientific management, they only bring about the theoretical aspect. Taylor has developed some of the techniques for the proper application of the principles of scientific management. These techniques are: number 1, scientific work study. Taylor was against the inability to do work and wanted to remove it by applying all possible means. Therefore, he conducted various experiments and evidenced that if the steps in the production process are reduced to minimum, if at the time of doing work needless movements of the body are removed, if the time necessary for performing a work is properly determined, and if the employees are not treated like animals at the workplace, then the inability to do work can be removed completely from the organization. By taking these experiments as base, he has categorized the work study into 4 parts, which are: number 1, method study, which says the study which ascertains the most appropriate way of performing a particular activity is known as method study. The techniques which are used in this study are process chart and operation research. Minimization of cost of production and maximization of quality and level of customer satisfaction is the primary objective of the study. Second type is motion study. While performing a job, the motions which are being performed by the workers and machines are covered under motion study. The study is performed with the help of a movie camera. Removal of needless or unwanted motions is the prime objective of this study. The third type of study is time study. The study of deciding the standard time needed to complete a particular activity is known as time study. A stopwatch is being used to perform the study. Determining labor cost, number of workers required, and deciding a suitable incentive plan are the main objectives of the study. Under this study, the standard time is being decided on the basis of average time recorded in various experiences of the work of similar nature. The fourth type of study is fatigue study. The study related to deciding the duration and rate of occurrence of rest intervals to finish a particular job is termed as fatigue study. A worker gets refreshed after the rest and they again start their work with full energy and capability. The maintenance of efficiency of workers, that is the main objective of this study. The main causes behind the fatigue are poor working conditions, long working hours, inappropriate work, and unhappy relations with the superiors. The second one is systematic task planning. Task planning in a systematic manner may be defined as going through all the characteristics of a particular work before starting it. That is, what is to be done, how it is to be done, when it is to be done, where it is to be done, and who is going to do it. In every organization, there should be a separate department for planning for doing this work. The third one is systematic selection and training of workers. The process of selecting right men for the right job without any favoritism is known as systematic or scientific selection. According to Taylor, there should be a separate personnel department in every organization which will make appointments of staff and will impart training to them before their positioning on the job. Modern techniques and methods they should be followed for giving training to the selected persons for the job in order to increase their efficiency. The fourth one is setting up of standards. The process of setting standards for various activities of the business after due consideration of all the factors is termed as standardization. For example, a standard output can be fixed for a worker which is to be achieved by him every day. There can be standards for raw materials, machines, working conditions, tools and techniques, etc. Fifth is differential wage system. It is the viewpoint of Taylor that a differential wage system should be followed as it will encourage the employees in an organization. As per this system, wages are paid to the workers on the basis of work done by them rather than on the basis of time spent in performing a work. Under this system, two wage rates are determined. One is the high wage rate and the other is the low wage rate. The workers are paid as per the high wage rate if they are able to produce the standard units fixed for them within the specified time limit, and those who fail to achieve the standards are paid as per the lower wage rate. Sixth one is mental revolution. The aim of mental revolution is to bring about a change in the attitude of both the managers and the workers. This change in the attitude of both the parties will bring about a feeling of cooperation among them. Usually, there is a fight between labor and management on the division of profits. According to Taylor, such an attitude should be framed that both the parties should do hard work for increasing the profits. If such thinking is developed, there would be an increase in production resulting in an increase in profits, and the topic of division of profits will be having no value. Seventh is functional foremanship or specialization. Functional foremanship is defined as making the full use of the expertise and skills of various specialists, which will lead to specialization. Under this concept, work is divided into various parts and each part is given to one expert. By adopting this method, advantages of specialization are occupied. The second type of classical approach is administrative management. Henry Fayol, an industrialist of France, is the father of administrative management. This approach is also known as process management. This approach lays emphasis on the development of broad administrative principles which can be applied to general and higher managerial levels. In this approach, the business activities has been divided into 6 categories, which are technical, commercial, financial, security, accounting and managerial activities. The main components of managerial activities are planning, organizing, coordinating, commanding and controlling. According to Henry Fayol, the management is a type of activity which is performed in the same manner in all business as well as non-business organizations. He has given 5 functions of management, which are planning, organizing, coordinating, commanding and controlling, and 14 principles of management. These principles of management given by Henry Fayol are: number 1, division of work. According to this principle, the whole work of an organization is divided into small tasks and each such task is assigned to one specialist who is well trained. This division of work leads to specialization, which is the most effective means to use human effort. Thus, work can be performed more effectively when it is divided into different tasks and each such task is performed by one specialist. The second principle is authority and responsibility. The term authority means power to take decisions and responsibility means a commitment to do a given job. According to Henry Fayol, there must be a balance between authority and responsibility. For example, if an employee has given a responsibility to do a job, then he must be provided with enough authority to perform his or her job efficiently and vice versa. Third principle is discipline. Discipline means following the rules and regulations of the organization and agreement of employment, as these are necessary for the functioning of an organization. As per this principle, all the employees working in an organization, they should function as a unified team and should follow organizational discipline. All of them should respect and follow a mutual system and code of conduct, which are rules for taking leave, overtime allowance, reporting time, bonus, etc. Thus, discipline is very important for the smooth functioning of the organization. The fourth principle is unity of command. According to this principle, an employee should receive orders from one superior only and to whom he or she should be answerable. A situation of conflict and confusion is created when an employee receives orders from more than one superior. Therefore, this principle of unity of command eliminates confusion and leaves no place for conflict. Fifth principle is unity of direction. The principle of unity of direction states that those activities which have a common objective should be directed through one head and one plan. It will help in bringing about unity of action and coordination in an organization. Sixth principle is priority to general interest over individual interest. As per this principle, the interest of the organization should be given top priority than the individual interest of employees. Thus, the common objectives of the organization should overtake the individual objectives of the employees. Next principle is fair remuneration to employees. According to this principle, the wages and salaries given to both the employer and the employees should be fair and equitable and should also guarantee a reasonable standard of living. Eighth principle is centralization. The process of concentration of decision-making power with one person is known as centralization. On the other hand, decentralization means the distribution of decision-making power among more than one person. According to this principle, there is a need to bring decentralization through involvement of subordinates in decision making, but the final authority to take decision should rest with the top management as per centralization. Thus, there should be a balance between centralization and decentralization depending on the type of organization. The ninth principle is scalar chain. Scalar chain means the formal line of authority that flows from top to bottom. According to this principle, there should be a clear line of authority from top to bottom which will link superiors and subordinates at all levels. This scalar chain will work as a chain of command and communication. Next principle is order. According to this principle, there should be orderliness in an organization. In an organization, there should be an appropriate place for everything and everyone, and everything and everyone should be at the right place. Next principle is equity. According to this principle, managers, they should be fair and kind towards their workers and they should treat all workers equally. Thus, there should be no discrimination on the basis of sex, religion, caste, etc. and all the employees should be treated equally. The 12th principle is stability of tenure of personnel. As per this principle, employees should have stability of tenure and they should be given enough time to show their performance and talent. Also, repeated transfers and rotations should be minimized. If after settlement in the job, an employee receives any transfer order, it will bring wastage of resources and he or she will not be able to give his or her best to the organization. 13th principle is initiative. According to this principle, employees at every level should be given some freedom so that they may come forward and use their abilities and skills to achieve the expected goals. Moreover, there should be a suggestion system for employees whereby initiatives and suggestions from employees are invited. It will lead to creation of a healthy environment in an organization. And the last principle is spirit de corps. It refers to team spirit, which means harmony in work group and mutual understanding among employees. It will lead to creation of an atmosphere of mutual trust and understanding in an organization. It also focuses on the popular saying which is union is strength. Now we will make an assessment of administrative management. The contribution of Henry Fayol to management is worth noting. He has given some major ideas which proved beneficial. These ideas are: number 1, management is universal; number 2, managers can be formed, they are not born; number 3, there can be delegation of authority, not the responsibilities; number 4, a person should be assigned one work at a time; number 5, the authority should be clearly defined from top to bottom; number 6, the information of authority and responsibility of every employee should be provided to them in writing; and last is, a manager should be assigned control of not more than 6 subordinates at a time. Thus, it can be concluded that the principles given by Fjoll are applied even today in order to provide guidance to the managers. The third approach under classical approach is bureaucratic management. The approach of bureaucracy was given by a social scientist of Germany, Max Weber. According to him, in order to remove irregularities in management firm, and strict rules should be made because irregularities lead to incompetence. He was of the view that there should be a well-defined formal system in an organization in order to bring about success and efficiency. Besides, he was also of the belief that success and efficiency in an organization can be achieved only through bureaucracy. The main characteristics of bureaucratic management are: number 1, impersonal relationships among people. Under bureaucratic system of management, payment of rewards and prizes should be made on the basis of efficiency and skills of a person and not on the basis of personal relations with him or her. Second feature is systematic rules. In order to manage the activities of the organization, systematic and proper rules should be made and these should be strictly applied. Number 3 is division of work in a suitable manner. The work should be divided in an organization on the basis of specialization. An employee should be assigned a work in which he or she is an expert. Number 4 feature is strong hierarchy of authority. The hierarchy of authority of the superiors and subordinates should be strong and should be visibly demarcated. The employee should be made responsible for the decisions made by him or her and his or her subordinates. Fifth feature is basis of promotion. In bureaucracy, the promotion should be given to the employees on the basis of their efficiency, skills and abilities. Thus, we can conclude that there are basically 3 approaches to organizational behavior: classical, neoclassical and modern approach. The classical approaches include scientific, administrative and bureaucratic management. Neoclassical approaches consist of human relation and human behavior approach, and the modern approaches comprise of system approach and contingency or situational approach. There are some points to ponder. The classical approach was based on the assumption that more consideration should be given to production rather than manpower in an organization. Second is, according to neoclassical approach, human resources, they should be given more importance than physical resources of the organization. And the third one is, modern approach is an enhanced form of classical and neoclassical approach. Thank you.